Hey everyone, thanks for joining us again for this week's edition of All Things Evangelism. I'm here with Pastor Jack Ryder. He's from the Kempsey area and he's pastoring right now at a really great little church plant that's on the campus of Kempsey Adventist School called The Well. And so glad that you're here, Jack. Thanks for joining me. And yeah, hey, look, we're talking today about evangelism in smaller communities and rural areas. But before we get into that, I wanted to just ask if you could please share just a bit about yourself and your journey with the larger church family so that they can get a sense of who you are.
Yeah, no worries.
Man, I think it's pretty amazing how God has led your journey. I really do, from just convert at an Adventist school setting
Mm,
and then, this journey of pastoral ministry out into the more rural settings of our conference and then now back to Kempsey. And you just know in God's foreknowledge and in the way that he can relate to time that he saw it, like
yeah.
he knew that he calculated that the reality and not that he determined it, but that was his, he knew that was a part of his plan. And I bet, it'd be interesting for him to like nudge an angel on the shoulder and say, yeah, you see that kid right there? Yeah, it's just about 10 years. This is what the world's going to look like for him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
No,
awesome.
it's amazing just reflecting on it. It's a privilege to even be able to share like that because it's just a reminder to me. I was just reading a text the other day when I was giving a Bible study to a parent, of David reflecting on the past, miracles and victories that God has done in his life, and just being able to do that, to remember how God has led, I think just strengthens you for the future and the present. So yeah, no, it's I pinch myself every time I think about it because it's just of God.
Totally. It's
Yeah,
a call of God on your life. He just chose you, man. He chose you, this young, kid who's out, just alienated from himself and out in disbelief, and here you are. So man, that's awesome. So dude, you after graduating Avondale College, you were called to pastor here in North New South Wales, which I remember when I heard, I was really glad that we got you. But and then you had the opportunity to go pastor out in Gyra, that area. And what's the other church in the Gyra district? It's Gyra and Inverell.
yeah, Inverell and Gara.
In
Yeah,
Gyra, yeah. So these are smaller towns, smaller communities. You leave college, you're fired up. You want to win souls for Christ. You want to minister to the community. Are there any so what was it like? You get into this small town, you're fired up. What did you do? Your pastor, Jack. What was your plan? What's your thoughts? Where you at that
oh,
time?
look, it's funny because I'll probably do it a little bit differently if I was to redo it now, and I think that's okay. It's a part of our journey. But coming out of college, you're on your 2 year internship. To be honest, to completely honest, I was just thinking about, okay, I've got to see this as a learning opportunity because I'm on my internship, and I was under Pastor John Lang, and just really dive into this and just see what happens. I always think that's the best way to go. Anyways, is okay, God, where how do you want me to lead this community? But something I did notice straight away is that when you're in a rural setting, is you've really got to do a lot of work to actually even establish contacts. So, arriving in these smaller towns, there might be one contact or two contacts that the church have, but you've got to really get out there and really start turning the soil. You've got to really get out there and start meeting people. We signed up for like a basketball team, we joined a volleyball team, met just meeting people and just seeing every day as an opportunity to meet someone that God could bring your way. And so, yeah, I remember meeting a Fijian family. They came to church once. And so straight away, you just got to take the opportunity when God presents. And they went to volleyball. So we signed up to their volleyball team, got alongside them. I started doing studies with them and so I brought them through to baptism. But yeah, just like creating those contacts and just by seeing every opportunity as possible. And obviously working, there's already established churches there, so you're working with an established church, as opposed to now it's a church plant, so you're establishing the church at the same time. So a little bit different, but yeah, I guess that would be probably one of my key takeaways is you need to go to work, and invite people along that journey and create those contacts.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense to me because, when in a smaller community, it's just the common sense reality. You just have it's less fish in a pond, if
Yeah,
you got more fish in a pond, there's just more opportunities available and you're just going to be more percentage wise, you're just going to have more people who are ready, and open and seeking and
yeah,
not needing you to cultivate a relationship over time. But in a small community, it just makes sense. Yeah, there's just less people.
yeah.
So I've heard from some that like in our small kind of rural communities, there's more of a kind of closed culture where people have lived there for a long, long time, and then they kind of see others who move there as outsiders, and they're a little bit, suspect, when you come into that kind of community. But
Yep.
in my experiences, just working for the conference and visiting the churches, I've just always felt that those community, like I've always thought that they're nice, small, friendly communities. Like, but that's just my outsider perspective. When you come in and live in a place, it might be different. What's your kind of take on that?
Yeah, I think definitely. Like when you're, I guess, visiting a place, especially if you're visiting a church, of course, someone from the conference
Yeah,
visiting,
they're all nice to you. Yeah, of
they're going to be
course.
nice.
Of course. Put on
But
your best. Yeah.
I think when you're living there, funny enough, I'll be honest here. I think you probably get more pushback from those you're most close with in the church than the actual community itself, because you're showing up as the new pastor, and don't you change anything, as opposed to a community, you're just another community member. You might be new, but and of course there's those lines that are thrown around, but yeah, I just found you just go with it. Don't resist, like don't try and say, something like, "Oh, I have just as many rights as you do as being here." What like
Yeah, yeah,
don't
don't take
fight
that
against it. Just
attitude.
laugh.
Yeah,
Just, oh yeah, yeah, I'm the new kid in town. What just who
just
cares?
wear
Just
it.
yeah, just wear it and get along with it, and get to know them. I think that's the key. I
That's a
remember.
lesson I wish I would have learned in my life on many occasions,
Yeah.
where when I was doing like kind of itinerant preaching in the US, I would, we'd just show up. My team and I would show up to a town. We'd be working with a church for 3 months, and, we get in the community, start developing relationships and Bible studies, and in preparation for like an evangelism series.
Mm,
And I learned in that context that it's really good when you come into a church, just don't stir up a hornet's nest. Like, it's just
yeah.
not going to help you.
Yeah.
You're going to get certain people involved and excited and work with those people, and people who don't want to be involved, don't try to force them to be. Like, you can encourage and inspire and whatever, but don't push it too hard, because you're going to start a fight that is only going to get in your way and be unproductive. But then in other contexts in ministry, where that I should have translated that lesson, I didn't. Like, where you kind of come in and you have this kind of chip on your shoulder, like that whole, like, yeah, I'm just as entitled as you to have a say here, and that kind of thing. It's really a bad idea, because you are a new kid on the block, and
Yeah.
you got to be sensitive to the fact that people have lived in the community for a very long time, and that's their home, that's their past, that's everything to them. And then here you are, you're just a new fixture,
Yeah.
that'll be gone in a certain amount of time. So
No, definitely, and I think the more you develop a relationship with people as well, the more they trust you. So, yeah, like just stay focused on winning people for Jesus, and I think if you're genuine in that, and they see just that you have a love for people, a lot of people will come around pretty quickly.
yeah, right on. So biblically speaking, John the Baptist and Jesus seem to spend most of their time in either smaller communities and
Yeah.
like wilderness areas, but that didn't mean that they didn't have a larger impact, right? And,
Yeah, I mean, when you think about Jesus' ministry, and you just look at, if you're thinking percentage-wise, how much did Jesus spend in the small communities going from town to town, as opposed to the cities? And the vast majority of his ministry was going from town to town. And yeah, I mean, Ellen White points that out in the book Evangelism. Yeah, that he saw that these people who were seen as neglects, they were neglected, and he had a passion to go and sow seeds in all of these communities before he's on his journey to Jerusalem, where he was to be crucified.
that's right. Yeah, his brothers were even pretty frustrated with him, right? Like, for not doing more in the bigger kind of centers,
Well,
you know?
exactly, yeah,
Like in John 7, they're like, hey, nobody who wants to be known, nobody who has the claim to messiahship is going to just hang out with, people in small towns. Like, go to Jerusalem. It's the time for the feast, and show who you
yeah, yeah,
are,
yeah.
if that's your goal.
Mm,
And yeah, it's that same disposition seems to be with us today, right? Like, is there really a lot of use? And I've thought this too, right? Like, how many dollars do you want to, like, if you can go fishing in a big pond with a lot of fish versus a
mm,
small pond with a few fish, where are you going to catch more fish? And then where should you allocate your funding and your effort and your
yeah.
time? Well, to the big pond. Obviously, cities don't need to be neglected, but
No, no, of
but at
course.
the same time, like, the cities have souls that Jesus died for, and
Mm,
we see from Jesus that he had a ministry, that he performed a ministry that changed the world forever and has
mm,
affected the salvation of billions of people, and he ministered in small towns. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, he didn't stay in one place for too long. I mean, he made his way around though. So yeah, and I mean, like I think that's the idea of small communities as well. Like I have a passion for like house churches and small groups modeled church, and I think you can if you treat the city as from suburb to suburb, you can kind of treat that as a town. Although the thing that is different is the culture. Like especially after ministering out west, it's like a different country when you go west of the Great Dividing Range. It's just a slower pace of life, and it feels like it's you're stepping into another world. So you just have to adjust for that. But I think you can still use similar methods in terms of seeing city suburbs as smaller towns and towns to towns as town.
Yeah. Do you know something that I was thinking? This lesson jumps out at me personally from Jesus's ministry in small communities is that when the Spirit of God is with you and you're winning souls and you're impacting lives, like like it's just the natural effect is that something bigger happens, right? So like
Mm,
if you're it's somewhat counterintuitive, right? Like I'm going to go preach in the wilderness and change the world. That's John the Baptist. I'm going to go preach in the wilderness and prepare the way for the Christ.
right. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
That's a bit counterintuitive, but
Yeah.
when the Spirit of God is with them, things start to happen wherever you are. And then
Yeah.
that has a larger effect, and then you've got the Sanhedrin coming to visit him in the wilderness. So, I mean,
Mm,
how powerful is
mm,
that? It's almost like when God is with you, you can put water on the altar and it's going to catch on fire. So sometimes people who want to have a quote bigger ministry or a larger impact, they just gravitate towards larger population centers, not realizing that at the end of the day, God will make your ministry big or small or whatever. And if you want to,
exactly.
and if you got the Spirit and you're affecting people positively and souls are being saved, like, God will probably grow that, and make it more significant than just a small town ministry.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just reflecting on. I look after another small group church at Southwest Rocks as well, and I remember, hearing their vision that they had a vision, they felt compelled to reach the lonely, and I remember hearing that and thinking, oh yeah, that's great, but what about these people, and what about these people, and what about
Hmm.
these people, and it's funny. I had to wrestle with in myself, and I came to the realization that what, like the ministry that we're actually doing at Southwest Rocks with friendship groups and old ladies. Jesus sees these elderly people, these lonely people. I mean, that was the core of Jesus' ministry, wasn't it? Like he was reaching the lonely. When he gets up in his hometown of Nazareth, and he reads from the scroll of Isaiah, and he talks about the neglected people. And this is the vision of Southwest Rocks Church. I remember, yeah, having to get out of that frame of mind, like you were saying, about just reach as many people as possible, but be more targeted and realize that these people are just as important, and there are actually a lot of lonely people. It's not actually a small group that I thought people were reaching, but in this world that we live in today, people feel socially isolated, especially with what we've just gone through
Yeah.
with COVID. I mean, with the vision, this was said to me before COVID was even a reality. And now after COVID, I'm like, yes, actually, that's a God-given vision, and there's a reason why they're reaching so many people that I don't think other groups could. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Praise God. I've got a friend, dude, he was called by his conference to plant a church in a small town. And
Mm,
he said that so he gets to the town and he's thinking, okay, okay, I'm here. I'm supposed to plant a church. And it's him. It's like him
mm,
and his wife. And they don't have a big budget. They don't have, a bunch of a team. It's just them. So he's like, okay, I'm going to go start knocking on doors. So he says he knocks on every door in the town like 4 times, like over the course of the year. And he's trying different approaches. Just, hey, my name's so and so, local pastor has just come to town, or whatever, or what community service angle, Bible angle, every angle, like, and then after he's done with that, he's got a couple Bible studies, and he's like, okay, getting momentum with a few people, but it's small. And then he says he goes and gets a membership to the local tennis club because everyone plays tennis. He doesn't play tennis, but he's like, oh, I'll go play tennis. And this is a guy who's not joining the tennis club as a pastor, who's just trying to kind of like play tennis and get paid and call it ministry. Like
right. Okay. Yeah.
he knocked on every door in the town 4 times and like worked his
Yeah.
guts out. He's got like 5-6 Bible studies,
Yeah.
but he's like, okay, I need more than this to make more. So he gets a membership, starts making friends with the guys on the tennis court, and he just joins all these little local associations, and just like you were saying, and from there he used that as a platform for more spiritual interactions and that. But he said that that was a bit challenging personally, because for him as a person sharing Jesus, it became harder for him. He said it was just easier just to like, hey, I'm a minister. You want to study the Bible with me? Because it was just
Mm.
like, I know why I'm here. It's very clear. It's very simple. And you don't have to shift from, we're just friends who play tennis together, to, by the way, like, where do you find that? But he said that that really was the avenue through which that he was really able to gain momentum. But
Yes.
he said just had to maintain his own spirituality, like, and not get lost in his social relationships. And he's a minister who, like, he's been walking with the Lord for a while. He, successful dude with God. But that's a weird thing to say, a weird way to say it. But he's just a solid Christ-centered believer, a solid Adventist pastor. But
Yeah.
he said that was a bit tough. But yeah, it's just like you were saying. He had to really do a lot of relationship building and a lot of reaching out in different ways through that in a smaller community, even more than a bigger community.
Yeah, and I think, just like going with the Spirit too, like just, constantly in prayer. I think just reflecting on some of my times, like I remember I used to dedicate Monday to just, a lot of prayer, and sometimes you just felt led to walk down the streets. Or I remember I have to share this story because this is just incredible. A church member's son was really off the rails, and they were asking me to go and visit him, but I could never find him. Like, he was just out there somewhere, wherever. And me and my mentor, we just put it to prayer, and just asking for the Spirit to lead us. And one night I'm just out unpacking the car, and I just looked up and it's a full moon. I'm like, oh, it's a great night to go fishing. And I literally just walked down the end of the road to where I was living, threw in a line, and walked past these guys who were fishing on the bank. And I caught like this Murray cod, which are like a fish of 1,000 casts, like within my second cast. Like, it was just crazy. And I bring this fish in, and these guys who are sitting beside me come running over, and like, "Are you kidding me?" Beep 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 beep. Swearing their heads off. But we've been here like half the day, and you come down, walk right past us, and throw in your line, and catch a fish, on your second cast. And it turns out one of the guys that were there, that was the guy, the church member's son, had been looking for. And like, I didn't realize at the time it was him. And later on, I ended up seeing him at home, and he made the connection. Wow, you're that. He called me a prick. He was like, "Oh, you're that." That walked past, and we made that connection. But it was just such like, how do you explain that? Like, that's a spirit led moment where you're giving it to God in prayer and just saying, "Okay, God, just if you want me to go somewhere to meet someone, here I am. Just
Yeah.
take me there." And I literally
Amen.
walked outside and just felt like going fishing, and there he was. It was kind of like a Peter story of go and throw your line in to catch the fish. But yeah,
Bro.
it's just trust God, and give your life to Him, and just walk by the Spirit. He'll take you to the people. Like we're saying, you have to work hard in these towns, and you do 100%. You have to work hard, but there's opportunity everywhere you go. Like, there's people everywhere you go. I believe we just have to align ourselves with the Spirit and be willing to and have our eyes open to see those opportunities. Right, even in a town where you feel like, oh, there's no opportunity, but that it is. There's people always there
Yep.
who are searching for God, and you just need to make yourself willing and open to the Spirit.
Dude, I just wish that every day of my life would be like that,
Yeah,
where you
I
just
know,
admit it,
right? Yeah,
where you just have those moments. I remember as a Bible worker, just come to faith, and I'm like this really excited new Adventist, and I'm just thinking, Jesus is coming soon. I want to share with everyone. I had no ambitions as far as like position or anything, but I just wanted to share. And you go out in the communities and you just grind and work and
yeah.
slave away and get such poor results. And then every so often you'd have those moments, and we just knew God fully set this up. Like, I had this situation, it was in the city actually, but I was in my truck and I was getting ready to head home. I had been just interacting with some contacts in that area of the
Mm,
community for like that afternoon, and it was just one of those cold, miserable days, and it was raining, and the kind of days you have in Canada is where I was at.
yeah.
And I get in my truck and I got walked by some guys smoking cigarettes, and they were like, yeah, just chatting. I was like, hey guys, how you going? Get in my truck, and I'm so wanting to get like an evening meal and get home,
Yeah, yeah.
and just get in the car, and I just was clearly impressed. Go just tell these guys about this evangelism series that's coming up. It looks
Mm,
like 4 days away. We had this evangelism series happening. Anyways, I'm like, nah, forget about it. I'm heading home.
yeah.
I drove away. I get to the stop sign at the end of the block and just know, and I start to imagine what I'm going to feel like when I'm in bed that
Mm,
night. And I started thinking I'm going to feel like a coward, just because I had the impression just at least just go give them a flyer. Like just say, hey guys, it's this really great series coming up. Check that.
Yeah.
Just felt impressed to share this with you. And so I didn't have the courage to do that because I was just like tired of life, and just
Mm.
tired, wanting to go home. And anyways, dude, so I put my truck in reverse, back the truck up, put it back in the parking spot, get out of the truck, and I'm like, hey guys, just felt, I don't remember what I said, but just wanted to share this with you. I'm with a group of young people. We're doing this series of meetings, and it's on the prophecies of the Bible.
Mm.
And it was just like, I just thought, here comes a buzz off kind of statement or whatever. And the guys like have this funny look on their face, they just look stupefied. And they go, dude, we were just talking about this. And I was like, nice. Literally. And that just moved us into just an awesome opportunity for Bible study and whatever.
Wow.
And so, it's just like this, the Spirit of God really does lead and impress. And,
Yes.
there's been occasions like that where I felt impressed and the person said, yeah, thanks. And then just threw it on the floor in front of me, but that
Mm.
doesn't mean that the Spirit didn't lead you. It just
Exactly.
means that, maybe he has a different purpose in that person's life. But yeah, that's amazing. Hey, dude. So I want to ask from you if you could share any other like bullet point insights for people in regards to like, these are some things to think about when you're doing ministry in small communities. You could
Mm.
draw from your Bible knowledge and your experience or whatever, or just another like story, like cool example of how God worked in a small community, just to inspire the people who are listening to us. But before you do, I
Yeah.
wanted to just say that to me, I think in all my years of walking with the Lord and being involved in evangelism, it seems to me that if you have the ability to see what's in front of you, like just you can see, you
Mm.
see opportunity, like you've said that a few times, if you see what's in front of you,
Yeah.
if you're connected to the Lord, if you're seriously committed to God on a personal level where you're connecting with him regularly and your religious experience is not based on just this is like my hobby, but
Mm.
it's no, this is I love the I'm seeking God's righteousness. I'm
Mhm.
seeking conversion. I just want to be with Jesus, and
Mm.
and that's how you relate. And if you're personally spiritual, if you see what's in front of you and you're willing to do the work, you're just willing to do it, just get out there and give it a go. It almost seems to me impossible that you won't find some level of success in
Yep.
outreach ministry. It
Yep.
seems to me like if those three things are in place, you're cool. Like in a small community, especially, like you work hard, you're sincerely spiritual, and you're well intended and sincere, and you just are willing to see what's in front of you. Because sometimes I feel like in evangelistic outreach, especially, you go into a small community and you're like, okay, this is how we're going to do it.
Mm.
We're like fishermen who are fishing, and
Mm.
like nothing bites your line, and like you're like, and then a fish might jump in your boat, and you're like,
Yeah.
man, and you throw it back in the water. You're like, nothing's biting because
Eh,
you're not seeing what's
yeah.
in front of you. You
Wow.
just got your mind
That's a
set
great
on
illustration. Yeah.
I got like my little lure, and if my little lure doesn't work and the way I'm casting, I'm not going to change anything up. I'm not going to
Yeah.
see other opportunities. There's another fisherman sitting next to me with a different lure, and he's catching like tons of fish, and I'm like, nothing's biting here.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
So any like bullet point insights or last parting words of
Yeah.
inspiration?
Look, let me kind of bounce off what you were just saying. Like something, a lesson that was someone told me, and I've really put into practice, especially being, I guess, more so here in Kempsey. And this was from Malcolm Allen, this my wife's grandfather. But he shared with me, Jack, just try everything. and and see what works. So and
Oh,
I've really taken that on board. Just try everything. Also, don't see failure like if something doesn't work as a mistake, but see it as an opportunity of growth. So just try everything. That's not working. Okay, then learn from that situation and move forward. That's something that I just think you have to have that mentality. You have to be flexible. Otherwise, yeah, you can just get, like you're saying, too bogged down. Something else that I think is really, really important, I think that I want to stress as well, is often if you're listening to this, you hear all the highlights of this story, but often people don't share like the struggle, like that planning churches and ministering in communities that might be rural communities. It can be really difficult, and you will go through those times. Like people often don't see the nights you might be crying on the floor because you don't feel worthy or you don't feel like what you're doing is enough. People don't see those moments. And to be honest, I feel like in my ministry, the tough times occur more often than the highlights. Those tough times and going through those tough times. But I want to put a footnote on that comment and say that those tough times, God can turn them into, again, using that keyword, opportunities. So I think if you're just willing and led by the Spirit, you will go, it is hard work. You will go through waves of emotions. And I believe it's actually more than the highlights. But if your mind is open to the Spirit, your heart is open to the Spirit, and to learning and growing, when you go through those tough times and you're wrestling with God, He can turn those opportunities into blessings. That's a big key point for me, is don't feel like and think that you're just going to go into it. It's just going to be highlight after highlight after highlight, because otherwise you will be very discouraged very quickly. It's going to be tough, but that's the whole thing, right? Is you just journey with God and watch Him turn those tough times into something magnificent that you're just like, wow, this has to be of God. But you just have to hang in there and hang with God and trust Him, trust His leading, and He will get you through. I believe that with all my heart. Yeah, I guess I'll just finish with this point, and this is something that I always hold on to, is, in the Old Testament, the word in Hebrew for blessing and the word for curse are actually the exact same word. And I take a lesson from that, in the fact that God can take our blessings and turn them into curses, but God can also take our curses and turn them into blessings. And how many times do you see that in Scripture? And how many times have you seen that in your own life?
Amen. Amen. Thanks so much, brother. I really appreciated this conversation. And everyone, I hope
Mm,
that you were as blessed as I was, just to consider more, ministering to the smaller rural communities and the potential and the possibility that exists there.
mm,
God, has a great work for us to do, not just in big urban settings, although those are important, but in small towns. And if we're going to follow the example of Jesus, we're going to care about those that are in the highways and the byways out there
yeah.
in the smaller towns. But yeah, listen, God bless you guys. Thanks again for joining us, and thank you, Jack. And we'll look forward to seeing you all next week.